So welcome back. We have been discussing on fasciola, the liver fluke, and we have already completed the morphology of fasciola hepatica, the details on the way, two different hosts, it being it a digenetic parasite. And in this presentation, we'll be looking into in detail the life cycle of fasciola hepatica. We have already seen that Fasciola hepatica is a hermaphrodite, that is, both male and female reproductive organs are present in the same individual. Even then, cross-fertilization is of common occurrence. Now, the fertilization of the eggs, it takes place in the oviduct, and these eggs are fertilized ones are brownish in color and oval in shape, and these gets enclosed in a chitinous shell. This shell later hardens and becomes brownish yellow in color. The shelled eggs, which is considered to be the completed eggs, these shelled eggs are called capsules, and you can see here these are the capsules. These are called capsules, which are large in size, and they pass into the uterus where the development starts. Now, capsules, they come out of the gonopore of the parent individual, the fasciola. So capsules come out through the gonopore into the bile duct of the sheep. So these fasciola, it is present in the bile duct, isn't it? The mature adult fasciola, it is present in the bile duct of the sheep, right? And the eggs which develop, the eggs are known as capsules. The capsules which are developed inside the uterus, it will come out through the gonopore and it will get dropped into the bile duct of the sheep. And from there, it reached the intestine of the sheep and are passed out through the feces. Okay, so this is how the eggs develop, and later it will come out into the surrounding medium. Right now, how the eggs look like? We'll just see. It is oval in shape. The mature eggs, they are oval in shape. Okay, somewhat like this in nature. Okay, I'm sorry. See. Okay, so we have the oval shaped what you call egg, and it is surrounded by eggshell. Okay, completely surrounded by an eggshell. Okay, it is layered, and then on one end it is having a opening which is known as operculum. Okay, this is known as the operculum, and here you can see the developing in the zygote. Okay, diploid fertilized one, and it is supported by numerous yolk cells which is laden with yolk. So utilizing this yolk, the what you call the zygote will undergo division, and it will develop into embryo, and the embryonic development, it takes place with the help of the yolk which is present in the along with this this one, what do you call the inside the egg. Okay, now this embryo will then develop into what is known as a miracidium. So this egg, it will have, instead of the yolk sac and the yolk cells and a single zygote, once the division continues, it will develop into what we call as a the next stage. It is known as the miracidium. Miracidium is somewhat like this in shape. Okay, so here the cells will divide and divide and divide and develop into the first stage, that is a miracidium. This is how it happens. Okay, you can see the egg will actually it is inside this egg the miracidium is developed. Okay, so once this miracidium is ready to be liberated, the operculum opens and miracidium flows out. Now, where is this egg? Actually, egg is outside in the external medium, right? So we'll see that these eggs are being passed out through the fecal matter, and these capsules fall in water or damp places, and the you can see that the further what you call development takes place outside the sheep's body. Okay, and we already saw how a miracidium develops inside the capsule, and these miracidium, as you can see, they are ciliated. Okay, they have a apical papilla. They are ciliated all throughout, so it can keep on moving. It comes this miracidium, it comes out of the shell by forcing the operculum. As we have already mentioned that this is the operculum, and it is forced open and the miracidium comes out. The miracidium, it actually it is a free swimming larval stage, and as we have seen, it is provided with cilia, so it swims about in the damp soil, in water, desperately in search of any object actually. Okay, the Miracidium try to penetrate any object or any organism they come across, but only when they come in contact with the next host. What is the next host? It is the freshwater mollusk or the freshwater snail. Okay, the specific snail, intermediate host, that is Limnia, or we have such kind of freshwater snail. Unless it come across that one Banacidium, it come across these kind of snails, it cannot proceed the life cycle. Okay, so this is what happens. So those larvae or those Miracidia which comes in contact with the suitable host can survive later, and those which do not come across the suitable host, it will die off within 24 hours. Okay, and for penetration, the Miracidium attaches its apical papilla. Okay, so here you can see this is the apical papilla. So the Miracidium attaches its apical papilla and performs boring movements. It bores inside. Okay, together with the contraction and expansion of the body. It soon makes its way into the digestive gland of the soil. So once it comes in contact with the snail, it will bore into the body of the snail, and then it will make its way into the digestive gland of the snail, where it undergoes the next set of changes, and in about 14 days it develops into the next larval stage, which is known as a sporocyst. Okay, so from Miracidium, it is inside the body of the snail. Okay, so now the next stage has come. It is the sporocyst. The sporocyst, you can see here, this is a sporocyst. It looks like an elongated sac, and these moves about. You can see it is the structures inside it is almost similar to what is there in the Miracidium, but they don't have cilia. Instead, the sporocyst has developed a very thick cuticle because it has to survive in the digestive canal or digestive gland of the snail. Okay, so the sporocyst moves about in the tissues of the host. It absorbs nutrition from it, and its germ balls in the sense, in whatever is germ cells, these structures are known as the germ balls. Okay, and these germ balls develop into the next larval stage, which is known as the redia. You can see here, okay, these germ balls have developed into redia. Now this is the next larval stage, the redia, and each sporocyst may produce 5 to 8 radiae at one time. Okay, so now next stage it develops. It is the redia. The redia emerge from the sporocyst by the rupture of the the body wall of the sporocyst. So now the redia, you can already said 5 to 8 redia may be present inside a single sporocyst. The wall of the sporocyst, it breaks open and it liberates the redia into the digestive gland of the snail. Okay, and you can see that each redia, it is elongated in nature. It is elongated and cylindrical in appearance. Okay, each redia, and the redia moves through the host tissue on which it also feeds, just like the sporos. This one we have already seen it. Right, and the moving radiae, they enter various organs of the snail, but prefer to migrate to its digestive gland. And during summer months, when water, the surrounding medium is dry, and hence the snail may be like sufficient. This one may not be available. The germ balls of the radiae, it may give rise to a second generation. These are the germ balls you can see over here. It will give rise to the next generation, that is a Cercaria. Okay, you can see here the Cercaria 1, 2, right? So it gives rise to the Cercaria, which is the next larva. The Cercaria larva, like maybe like 14 to 20 may be present in each redia. It leaves the body of the redia through its birth pore. Okay, you can see here there is a birth pore, right? So this through the birth pore. So this redia is not getting completely broken down. Instead, it passes through the birth pore into the external environment. Okay, and it enters the snail's digestive gland. So this is the Cercaria completely grown, and now it is present in the snail's digestive gland. Okay, the mature Cercaria makes its way through the host tissue, often migrating to the pulmonary sac. when you will be studying in detail the pila, the snail, you will be learning the pulmonary sac and all. It is the region where the water, it is a respiratory surface, a respiratory structure in the case of mollusks, and it comes in contact with the external medium. Okay, now what happens? Cercaria, it will move and it will reach the pulmonary sac, and from there it escapes to the surrounding water, because the surrounding medium is in contact with the pulmonary sac. Okay, and temperature between 9 degrees to 26 degrees favors the emergence of Cercaria from the snail. So Cercaria comes out into the external medium. Miracidium, it entered into the snail, it passed through the sporocyst, the redia, and it reached the Cercaria. Now Cercaria comes out of the snail. Okay, now the Cercaria, it moves about in the surrounding water or crawls about on grass blades. Okay, that is the leaves of the grass, no, it gets attached to it or it moves over the grass blades. So after an active life of 2 to 3 days, it loses its tail. This is the tail region. It loses its tail, and then it undergoes encystment. It gets covered with a cyst, right? And it gets attached on some aquatic plant. And this stage of encysted Cercaria, which has lost its tail, is what is referred as a metacercaria. Okay, you can see here that all the structures inside the Cercaria is retained here, isn't it? You can see the flame cells, you can see the genital, you can see here the acetabulum, right? And then these gut, okay, the branch intestine, the esophagus, the oral sucker, everything, it is being retained, except that it has lost the tail and it has got covered with a cyst wall. Okay, this encysted stage is what is referred as a metacercaria. Okay, the thick, hard, whitish cyst is actually the product of cystogenous gland cells. You can see here the cystogenous gland cells. These are the cells which produce the cyst. Okay, and it gets laid over the this particular part of the body, right? Of Cercaria, right? And then later this particular what you call cystogenous gland cells, once it is used for the production of cyst, it will get degenerated. It will get degenerated later. The uncysted Cercariae ingested by the primary host are destroyed by the action of its acidic gastric juice. So actually the cyst wall, it protects the metacercariae till it reaches the what you call digestive part of the sheep, or what you call, not the digestive, the liver cells, or the bile duct of the sheep. Till then it has to get protected, and this protection is made possible with the help of the cyst wall surrounding the metacercariae. Okay, you can see here the Cercaria, it is almost similar to the adult liver fluke, isn't it? Most of the structures are there. The mouth opening, the oral sucker, the what you call pharynx over here, and the sucker over here, and the branched gut. So all the acetabulum, isn't it? Yeah. So all these structures almost it is almost similar to that of the adult what you call the liver fluke, except for the presence of a tail. Okay, and this cystogenous gland cells, right? So now metacercaria larva, what happens to that? Metacercaria larva, where is it? It is actually attached onto the grass blade, right? Now, when the cyst of the metacercaria provides protection against getting desiccated, that is, it is present on the grass blade, it is exposed to sunlight, it may get dried up. So this cyst wall actually protects from getting desiccated. The larva, this metacercaria larva develops into adult fluke only when it can successfully get inside the horse body, that is the sheep body. Okay, and the latter, that is the sheep, gets the infection by grazing on leaves and grass blades onto which the metacercaria are attached to. So the metacercaria survives the action of horse gastric juice because of the cyst. Because of the cyst, in the sense, cyst is insoluble by, or it cannot be dissolved by the gastric juice. The cyst wall finally gets dissolved in the when the metacercaria reaches the intestine. Okay, and once the cyst wall is completely digested, this whatever is inside the larva, it is liberated, it is released. Okay, and then now the particular larva, it can penetrate the intestinal wall and reach the coelomic cavity. From there, it can infect the liver, feed on the liver tissue, and grow in size in within like 1 to 2 months. Okay, so this is what happens with regard to the life cycle. I hope this part is clear.